That's my Lord. That's my Lord. He gives to us the definition and the nature of reality. And lastly, in the person of Jesus Christ. Isaiah calls him Wonderful Counselor. Peter looks at him and says, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. The Apostle Paul, Saul at that time in Acts chapter 9 says, what shall you have me to do, Lord? Thomas raised his hand and touched his side and said, thee, my Lord and my God, ho kuriosmu, ho theosmu, the Lord of me, the God of me. When Pilate looked at him and said, art thou the Christ? He says, you have said it. When the priest looked at him and said, are you the Son of God? He says, you're right in stating that I am the Son of God. And John chapter 14, he says, in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am, you may be also. Lord, where are you going? If we don't know where you're going, how can we find the way? I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. No man comes unto the Father except through me. Show us the Father, Lord. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. Philip, have you been with me so long, and you don't know that when you've seen me, you've seen the Father? I and my Father are one. And he who believes in me, greater things than these shall he do. And then that climactic moment when he goes to Bethany, and the sister says, Jesus, if you'd been here, he wouldn't have died. You know, I like the King James language. Jesus looks at the disciples and says, let's go to Bethany. Lazarus is asleep. The disciple says, if he's asleep, why go all the way to wake him up? Somebody else will. Jesus says, you got it wrong, boys. He's not asleep as in asleep. He is dead, D-E-A-D, dead. Well, if he's dead, what are we going to do now? They're going to bury him, aren't they? Come on with me, boys. And they say, well, let's go. We'll all die together. You know, very optimistic bunch, these ones. So they arrive. Martha comes running and says, if you'd been here, this would not have happened. The scribes have told Mary, if you'd been here, this would not have happened. But Jesus is here now. So Mary comes running and says, Jesus, if you're here, this would not have happened. And then he says, go away, let's go to the tomb. And he asks somebody to roll the stone away. And here the King James language loses its regality or tries to retain it. We lose it. He says, somebody says, look, he's been dead for so long, the body now stinketh. And he says, remove the stone. And he looks forth and he says, Lazarus, come forth. Someone has said the reason he said Lazarus, if he'd not said Lazarus, everybody would have come forth. And what do the Pharisees do with that? They say, he's got to go, let's kill him. Have you ever wondered what you would do to frighten Lazarus after he'd been raised from the dead? What would you do to threaten him? Lazarus, I'm going to kill you? That's what he'd do. He'd laugh. And there's a book written by Eugene O'Neill called Lazarus Laughed. Caligula said, I'm going to kill you. He says, ha ha ha. And he says, stop ha ha haing. I'm going to kill you as I'm killing all the Christians. He doubles over, and uncontrollable laughter comes up for air and says, Caligula, haven't you heard? Death is dead. Death is dead. How do you frighten somebody who's already been there and knows the one who's going to let him out? To threaten him with death is to tell a man on death row, we're going to tear up your credit cards after you die too. Ha 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 ha.